Then got it. And then it'll go to the YouTube, and then we just have to.
Okay, hi everybody, let's call this meeting to order. I'd like to establish that we have a quorum, beginning with the roll call vote, starting with Joe.
Here.
Jen. Here. Christina. Here. Nicole. Here. Yana.
Here.
And John.
Here.
And we should just note that Yana and John are here virtually with us, so we have a quorum. Do we have any changes to the agenda, or do I have a motion to approve? A motion from Jen, do I have a second? A second from Nicole, all in favor of the agenda as presented, signify with aye. Aye. Joe, would you go ahead and read the equity statement and our mission statement to start us off?
Yes, the equity statement is each student has access to the resources and educational rigor they need at the right moment in their education, regardless of race, gender, ethnicity, ability, language, family background, or family income. And the mission statement, each student will acquire the knowledge and skills necessary to achieve their personal goals, thrive in a global society, and lead a healthy, self-fulfilling life.
Thank you so much. Well, thank you everybody for starting our meeting off a little bit early today. I'm going to turn it right over to Dr. Clarity to start with the superintendent's report.
Good evening, everyone. Again, as the president stated, thank you for coming in a little bit early to begin our board meeting for today. We're going to start with a quick update of what was called a Sail Academy. Sail Academy is the name of like a conference or a process that is executed through conferences and additional meetings. We're really working towards bringing our organization to a high level of coherence. And we want to make sure that as we think about a potential North Star for our organization, and what that North Star is shortly, how do we align all of our supports in a way that we do not become an organization of initiatives, we become an organization of prioritization towards a North Star. We kind of use a shipping or a boating analogy. I think we took year one and we wanted to get our vessel on the right course. Now we want to make sure that our course is headed to the perfect destination. And when we think about our perfect destination and what we learn from our students and our staff in multiple platforms is a deeper understanding of deeper work in our areas of literacy. And so the 14 leaders that we took represented multiple departments across our organization. We came up with a goal that we thought each person in our organization could align with and for, and then create the theory of action of how we would do the work collectively together. So in our goal, and this will be one of the few times that I'll read directly to the next two slides. Our goal will be 100% of students will demonstrate at least 1 year growth in disciplinary literacy outcomes each academic year as measured by the school continuous improvement process. Did you notice we didn't intentionally put an assessment on there because we want multiple modalities of looking at student outcomes and performance, especially staff input, in addition to some of the assessment work that we'll put in place. Also, we wanted to ensure that by saying disciplinary literacy, there's an understanding that this is not incumbent on, per se, the language arts teacher or reading teacher. Disciplinary literacy means every piece of content in our organization, we have a literacy lens. And by literacy lens, we mean reading, writing, and articulation, and making sure that we are able to develop students in a manner that allows them to be as critical thinkers that we desire. And we know about high-level literacy skills, our students aren't able to truly thrive in the environment that we set for them. So we while we could have picked many things, I mean, that's a problem, we just picked many things. And we settled in on what are those things that will allow true access and opportunity, and has a true equity focus, and literacy gets that component to a T. So our how. As you know, in our buildings, we develop theories of actions for continuous improvement plans, so it's incumbent upon us as an organization to put a theory of action in play. And I'm going to follow through with our 4 and statements, and then just kind of open up the questions here at the end. So really, we thought about if we commit to a collective purpose and a culture of growth with a belief in the power of collaboration and learning. We'll pause and tell you why we say collaboration and learning. We chose collaboration because, when you think about our mission of time for healing, the healing doesn't stop because of challenge. Our healing must continue, and we look at collaboration as that next mechanism for allowing us to collectively heal together, because we have those spaces for our staff and students who like to come together with intentional purpose and common goal, and how that brings value and you feel you're appreciated and able to share that with your peers. On top of that, we know we must design coherent instructional framework informed by student-informed voice and experience. We have to build pedagogy for disciplinary literacy district-wide, leverage the continuous improvement process, utilizing data to inform instructional decision-making, and empower and mobilize educators through robust professional development system. Then, and only then, 100% of our students will demonstrate at least one year of growth in disciplinary literacy. So, while these 2 slides are kind of a summary of 3 days of deep, intentional work, we desire to put this in front of our board so you understand our collective vision and action moving. Friday is July 1 already. It's go time. We also presented you with the coherence books that are guiding our thinking, and we're going to use that as our playbook this year. So I'll pause there for any questions, but really desire that the board understood our collective mission for this year, and hopefully what will resonate with you is how you should hear each of the new policies that live now in results policy and operations.
Might be able to speak a little bit to what some of the professional development might look like in this first year. Is there any brainstorming about what topics and or construct the collaboration?
Yeah, and so that is where we felt that we'd be doing the if we design a PD that said this. And so it was like, here's a framework. Now it's going to put our staff to talk about, what the PD is going to work together. What does collaboration look like for you? Now, what we think it looks like for you. So it's a no, and here's why. No, to intentionally not go in that space, because otherwise you're going to have 14 central office people building something and telling you what to do instead of collectively. Trick question.
Great answer.
So hearing nothing else, I want to move to the next piece of the superintendent's report, which are some quick updates to the employee handbook for 2023. Michelle,
this is going to be super brief. Yes. So this is going to be a super brief conversation. Our employee handbook now falls under OE4. These are in the past, the board has oversight and approval with OE4 that now falls under Dr. guidelines and approval process. But that doesn't mean we want to stop it from not going any further. So tonight I want to share with you the collective work we have done with the best practice spring on updating our employee. And similar to what we have accomplished with the compensation plan this upcoming year, we also wanted to make sure we had strong relationships with the and best practice. And we thought about the changes this year in our handbook really benefit the employees that we have. That is our goal, to make sure that we attract, retain, and engage our employees. So what you will see in the presentation are a high-level overview of the kind of critical updates that we propose that we will be implementing as of July 1st. The biggest one is actually a release. And that is updated in handbook to address the set of requirements. And we're going to the, that's the huge piece, it's really tiny, but it means. So that is an automatic change for us. And we'll get through the contracts, all of the documents that we have to make sure that we are using them. On top of that, some of the other changes that we're making really have a positive impact. You will see bullet 2 talks about FMLA legal access. I'll go into the weeds just a little bit. FMLA leave allows employees who are working with us for an incident or those that is not available to people who are part-time or those that are brand new, which is really still a critical time where folks need to take some time off if they've had a serious medical condition. Just giving work. So we are expanding our employee handbook to give access to approved time for our new employees. Also on the back end, we are allowing folks to remain on the access longer than prohibits or allows, so that people have access to our insurance, which is also very critical. We're out for a serious medical condition, we want to make sure you. So that is a very committed. We are also recognizing that our employees who are in our league have more limited access to than some of our own employees. We want to make sure they have access to these. So we are expanding how generally works. Instead of waiting a full 5 years before they have access to beds, it is being rolled out in compressed 2 years. So that also expands access for our employees, ensures that they will be status when they have that time. We also, this last year, during the hearing, to our process. So we have realized in a short period of time that we build up and so to mirror our personal ways and us for some reasons and time off capabilities, we are going to mirror our personal ways. And that has been a wonderful work together to identify the language and make sure that we're doing what's best for employees. We also added our salary criteria. That is a part of our compensation negotiations and approval. And we want to make sure we document that as possible, so employees know what's happening and there's some collective trust on how we place the salaries. And finally, I think it's also just critical that our employees understand our handbook and how we have relationships. And we're really professional relationships. And so the other real critical change is identifying and digging just deeper on what a personal relationship is with students and students are protected. So that's kind of a high level overview of the changes that we will be doing as of July 1st. I look forward to future conversations that we have to make sure that our handbook is the best handbook possible for our employees and the staff. And this is a really good finish out the year handbook process. Any questions?
Good question. Can you speak to maybe some broad strokes as to what changed in the definition of professional relationship? Like, what were some of the things that weren't clarified in this information?
So one of the bigger ones is social media, as well as how we students outside work. So what that means for types of students, or finding them, not finding them.
Thank you very much. We appreciate the update. It sounds like good progress and good changes for the benefit of staff.
Thank you, Rochelle. Appreciate that. And thank you to our VA and VESPA leadership here that have been great partners with us on this our handbook language. Next, we have a quick budget update from our very familiar business office reps.
So I'm not sure if Chad was like practicing in his car or if he was rocking out before the meeting. I wasn't sure what that is.
He was wrong.
I know that.
I was on the phone, but feverishly grabbing your stuff.
Want to know what your pre-budget update tune to get you fired up.
I'm hopeful tonight that I needed very little rehearsal because we've done so much work this school year to get our budget to the point that it's at right now. Dr. Clarity, I can take the clicker if you'd like. So we have a very brief, I'm guessing probably the shortest budget update we've had, which means that our budget is in a great spot. But we did promise to get to the end of June to finally get to a spot where we voted on our preliminary budget. So Pete and I tonight have just a few brief outcomes, a reminder more than anything for the board to remember and the community to remember some important deadlines and benchmarks that we've got in the budget process coming up over the next few months. Pete's going to give a brief update on the year-end budget. We are close to July 1, which means the finance team gets the pleasure of wrapping up all the hard work that happened last year. At the same time, opening up the books for a brand new school year. We will have a preliminary budget vote, and Meredith, we put language on the last slide. We'll certainly let Dr. Clarity take care of the logistics in terms of stepping in and out of the superintendent's update. And my final update regarding the school capacity, I know we had a couple of board members asking for 2 finalized reports. We've had some back and forth with MDR over the last week. I will include both EUA's update on school capacity in terms of the architectural study, in terms of how many students our schools can hold, and the update from MDR around enrollment projections related to an increased student population in the leadership letter next week. Just to make sure the board has plenty of time, and we'll give you web links to both of those. MDR was not completely done, and I do not want to send it in draft. I'm going to have to send it to the board yet. A brief reminder, more than anything, this is for the community because the board has seen this a number of times. We have worked throughout this year with 3 main goals: putting students at the middle of this budget, making sure we had a plan for not only this year, but we had long-term planning related to the operating and capital needs of our district, and that we continue to keep our taxpayers in mind as we build budgets. This is the board has seen this a number of times, but just a reminder to a few key dates here. We are going to vote on, the board is going to vote on the preliminary budget this evening. We will have a budget vote relative to the operating, a potential operating referendum on July 11th. And we've been back and forth on that a number of times. And then we will have our budget hearing and we'll meeting on August 1st. So we will see Pete and Chad again in the coming months, but tonight is also an important date. Pete is going to provide just a brief update on kind of how the year wraps up and how he gets his team together for prepping for the audit this fall. Pete, I'll turn it over to you. And I don't, are we moving microphones around anymore or not? We're owl, right?
Actually, she needs it to hear you better. She's having it this farther away, she couldn't hear us.
Okay. All right. So, well, hopefully everyone can hear me, and thank you, Chad. And as Chad said, the end of the fiscal year is approaching rapidly. In fact, it's going to be here in about 3 or 4 days. So that means it's audit time for the business office. It's going to keep us very busy. Now, Chad and I prepared this list up here of some of the things that we're still waiting for, and one of which is the final payroll and fringe benefit costs. Now, Rochelle and her team are diligently working to finalize the last payrolls for the teachers for this year, and then there's also going to be another payroll in early July for the hourly employees, just to make sure that everyone's there. But sometime by the middle of July or a little bit after that, we should know how our payroll and fringe benefits would have ended. There's a line up here for invoices and P cards. Yeah, we get invoices and P card statements all the time in the business office. But right now we're
gonna start seeing which ones are coming in after July 1st and the ones that are before June 30th. And I'm saying the one that's before June 30th is gonna be part of this year's budget. The final ESSER claims. Now, I've already did one ESSER claim this year. As a reminder, we put $1.4 million in this year's budget of our ESSER 2 money that we have. And I already put in one claim for about $950,000 on that. And as we are finalizing the year here, I'm going to put in our final claim for this year. Similar with the state and federal projects. So any of our grant money, once we get our payrolls done and all of our expenses, then we'll be able to finalize our claims on it. And finally, there is likely going to be uncommitted resources again this year. We're trending to having money in our surplus this year, meaning our revenues will exceed our expenses. That's how it's trending as of right now. It doesn't look like it's trending as well as it did at this time last year, but it is still trending positive. So that is the year-end budget update.
And I will, I'll add on just a couple of comments in terms of the work Pete's doing. You never want to build a budget that we have to send a message to our principals, our central office staff, or any of our district staff in the middle of March saying, hey, we're running hot. It looks like we can run out of money at the end of the year. We're going to cut off spending. On the opposite end of things, we also don't want to be spinning off 3 or 4 or 5% of our annual budget that goes to what Pete calls uncommitted resources, which means unspent money. And it should be our goal that we end up in a place that most of our resources are heading to our classroom on an annual basis. And we are budgeting accordingly to make sure that our budget comes in close. It's kind of school finance best practice to shoot for around 1%. And if we end up a little bit below that, that's perfectly fine. If we ended up at 2 or 3% of surplus budget, that means we built in some really aggressive assumptions, and we didn't necessarily do our job. So Pete kind of almost downplayed the fact that it's not coming in as rosy as last year, but that in some ways that's a good thing. That means we spent money, and that we spent money this year to point it to the classroom, and I certainly think it's a credit to Pete's work and the forecasting work that he did as we made budget adjustments last October. If the board remembers, we pulled out over $1 million of our budget between this time last year and October to finalize that budget when we ended up at the end of October, because we finally were able to right size payroll and tweak some things around the edges. I fully would expect Pete's team to do that this year again. And I guess that's a perfect segue as we work into the budget vote this year. Again, for the board, this is a vote that yes, we've been informed. Yes, we've made really good progress on this year's budget. Yes, we believe Pete and Chad in terms of the assumptions built into this, but this is just a status check. We won't know where our budget will end up until we get to October. Questions for Pete or anything else on wrapping up this year? Okay, and then we can kind of proceed quickly through, because the board has seen this a number of times. We presented our budget book to the board at our previous board meeting. If and when things are voted on and approved tonight, our team will get this preliminary budget book up on our website. So it's there now until we get all the way through the annual meeting, continuing to want to be transparent with our community in terms of where taxpayer resources are going, and we've got planned in our budget. Again, kudos to Pete and the team for the work they did to put this budget book together. A reminder, I mentioned a few of these. Again, this is just our best guess in terms of where we think the budget's going, in terms of where we end up in the fall. And more than anything, we want to be transparent with our community ahead of the annual meeting and budget hearing. The board has seen this a number of times. More than anything, I put this slide back in just if the community is following along. Dr. Clarity and I and a few other team members met with IDAC this morning and kind of just reviewed the fact that this has been a long process for us to close a $5 million budget gap, insert a referendum scenario, work with our 2 unions to end up at a $0 CPI increase pending the potential referendum, and kind of battle through that $0 from the state in terms of increased revenue authority. And we ended up getting to today, which I'm super proud of everyone for the work that they did. Reminder to the board, we finalized, and this is really a Fund 10 and Fund 27 number, just shy of 84 million that we built into a comprehensive budget book that the board has seen. And we have these two slides that the board should be very familiar with. One, a draft budget with a proposed potential mill rate of 11.78. That's boxed in the upper left-hand corner. A few highlights in what is a non-passing referendum budget. Use of one-time funds, step increase for staff, 0% CPI adjustment, a pretty drastically lowered mill rate, and a balanced budget yet again. There's that mill rate in draft form, and we will continue to watch that as we track our way closer to October, and even meeting with the city of Verona folks today. They're starting to get closer on some new construction numbers that are being folded into all of our municipalities that can continue to weigh up what that final mill rate looks like. But we are, at least right now, tracking the assumption we got a mill rate in the neighborhood of 11.78. And then a reminder, because we did have this insert in our annual budget, we also have been kind of tracking two budgets. So we had a revised potential referendum scenario, big ideas on this slide. Staff is on hold regarding salaries until we get to November. It is a credit to Rochelle and her team as they're working through new hires. Rochelle's been very transparent with folks that here's where our current salary schedule sits. She has also continued to work with them to let them know, you're right, 4.7 didn't get folded into this year's budget, but there's the possibility of it happening in November, and continuing to have to make sure that folks are aware of many of the other assets our district has between the June and November window to get them to become Verona Wildcats. So that's in the mix, but a reminder, CPI is not in the fold until we pass that referendum. And then we built in a projected mill rate of 11.78 for next year. And then we are, and this is always a guess, 11.78 is still our best guess. But thinking 12.14, some conservative assumptions with years to follow. But our property values continue to go up like they have. There's certainly a very strong possibility we stay in the 11s fairly comfortably as a district moving forward. This is that slide the board has become very familiar with in terms of what that referendum scenario might look like. Certainly, we're here tonight to answer questions that the board has any. And I'm fully expecting our July 11th presentation to potentially be, we'll talk through some logistics and there will be a board vote. But I'm not expecting, we shouldn't be doing a ton of discovery as a group at that July 11th meeting. If folks have any questions, we're certainly here to answer them tonight or in the coming weeks ahead of that board vote. That is the board vote. Prior to that, we will take questions on any of that relatively brief presentation relative to the budget.
I have one quick question. We just heard Dr. Clary talk about a theory of action that includes a robust professional development program. Is the what's built into the budget now sufficient to meet that kind of robust program that's being considered?
It is, and I'll remind the board, we've had so many different iterations. We had that large Fitchburg TID picture, and we had a board meeting. I'm guessing that was probably late April, May-ish, where we talked about TID and use of one-time funds. And we continue to work with the board to remind them that really ESSER and TID are kind of two in the same. That is, it's access to one-time funding that will eventually go away. And we built an additional $1 million of one-time funding into Dr. Hawkins' budget. And that could be used for the purchase of curricular materials and certainly used for staff and professional development related to the new guiding principles we set up coming out of the SAIL conference. So I often joke with Dr. Hawkins in my first year here, it would always be down in my office. Chad, do we have money for this? Chad, we're running out of money. What's going on? And I said, we have built a budget now that Dr. Hawkins does have the resources she needs to make sure we're implementing and investing in classrooms like we want. So we're in a really good spot for next year's budget, both with the passing and the non-passing budget. And it was, in my opinion, a wise use of resources. Dr. Hawkins says one-time expenses. It could be in the form of software, it could be in the form of paper and textbooks, and certainly in the form of investing in our adults. But those investments will not be in the form of FTE that carries over on an annual basis. It's for, investing in our staff, investing in our kids in a one-time way.
Great, thank
You bet. Any other questions?
Jen, Pete, I just want to thank you for keeping the board so updated and informed about the budget. I think especially with we have a lot of new board members, but I mean, Christine and I have been on the board for a long time, and I feel like I know more about our budget than I have ever before. This has really been incredibly helpful. So thank you. Thank you for all the work that you put into getting us up to speed.
Thanks all of you. That is a reciprocal thank you. It takes a team to do this. So if we didn't have interest from the board to pull this off, certainly the depth of the dialogue, decisions we made would have been nowhere near where we got this budget. So it's a thank you back. Dr. Clarity, that is the language. I'll let you and Meredith run with it from here. So I gotta pass it. I don't know if we need to close the superintendent's report ahead of the board action, but I will leave the language up there for help text.
Thank you both. So that officially closes the superintendent report on my end. Unless there's any other questions from the Board of Education, I'll turn it back over to our president.
No other questions? Okay, in that case, do I have a motion to approve the preliminary budget in the amount of, okay, so I'm not used to reading numbers this large. $83,999,891. There's a motion from Nicole. Do I have a second?
Second.
A second from Jen. All in favor, signify with aye.
Aye.
And we have approved the preliminary budget. Thank you very much.
Yeah, tell me you didn't want to have that 109 to just.
Okay, in that case, we also have board action for a workshop to move to July 11th at 5 p.m. Is that correct? Yep. And do we need to take action on that? Or should, I think let's just informal take an action. Are we all available July 11th at 5 p.m.?
So we have a board
We have a
meeting
regular
at
board meeting
6.
starting at 6.
Yeah. Okay,
Just workshop from 5 to 6.
perfect. We'll keep that on our calendar. Public comment. I'm assuming, is there anyone here for public comment? Hearing none. Superintendent consent agenda. Are there any questions about the consent agenda? Hearing none, it is approved. Moving on to the board's consent agenda. Are there any questions about the board's consent agenda? Hearing none, it is also approved. Okay, future agenda items. We have our regular meeting at 6, but we'll be starting at 5 that day. A regular meeting at July 11th at 6. A regular meeting July 25th. We have our budget hearing and annual meeting on August 1st, and then another regular board meeting on August 15th. So with that, we are going to adjourn to closed session under Wisconsin Statute 19.85 sub 1 sub C to consider employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the government or body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility regarding superintendent evaluation. Do I have a motion to adjourn to closed session?
So
Motion from Joe. Do I have a second? Second. Second from Christina. All in favor, we'll do a roll call vote, starting with Joe.
I.
Jen?
Aye.
Christina?
Aye.
Nicole?
Aye.
Yana?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
I am I as well. We are officially adjourned to closed session. Thank you, everybody.